Real life 40-year-old virgins. What's your story? Story 1. I lost my virginity at age 40. I had opportunities, but I just didn't realize it at the time. Girls would flirt with me, but I would freeze and my mind would go blank. I'm very shy and quiet. Sometimes I think I might be autistic, but I've never been diagnosed or sought a diagnosis. I always felt like something was wrong with me, and I knew I wasn't normal. I also didn't drink much or go to parties. Story 2. A friend of mine is 39 and has never lost his virginity. He's super religious, has had girlfriends, but never got married or anything, so he's never had sex. Well, that's as far as I know. Maybe he has and is ashamed of it. Maybe he's gay and in the closet. Maybe he's asexual. I don't know. He's a normal guy, drinks beer, plays video games, goes to bars, has traveled the world. Decent looking, but not great. He's maybe a little out of shape, but I wouldn't call him ugly. The thing is, he wants to be married before having sex, and also has super weirdly high standards. Like, now that he's his age, he still won't settle for anything less than a Kate Upton who's ultra-Christian. Story 3. I'm in my mid-40s, female. I have a congenital condition that isn't particularly disabling in terms of what I can do, but it has caused me to look very different from other women. It severely disrupted my metabolism, which made me gain a lot of weight. I developed like a typical girl until around puberty, and then started developing a mix of male and female features. The condition also caused scarring and gave me a generally unhealthy appearance, greasy skin, hair falling out. Even with excellent grooming, you can imagine how sexually unattractive men have found me. So here we are. I expect to live the rest of my life alone. At this point, I'm so broken from the bullying and isolation that a relationship doesn't even seem imaginable. Perhaps it's a blessing that this condition is associated with a shorter lifespan. Story 4. I'm 42. I thought I had a date once. It wasn't. My experience sort of falls into 3 time periods. Age 17 to 25. I asked some girls, women out. They all flat out said no, except for one. In the last few years of that period, I started stupidly asking why. And because you're you, was the top answer. One person eventually elaborated enough for me to understand what because you're you really meant, and I gave up. I threw myself into my studies, researched anything that interested me, and just read a lot about a lot. Age 25 to 32, I didn't even try. I continued my self-studies. Sure, there were women I would have loved to ask out. There was even one I did, quite to my own surprise. Of course she said no, and then some. But I was still me, and I figured they would have said no anyway. I had a demanding, abusive job from 28 to 30 that drained me completely. I joined a gym at 30. Age 32. Now, I lost 97 pounds between 30 and 32. I took up yoga and running. I think I started noticing women noticing me, but I had convinced myself that women don't find me attractive, so I figured I was imagining it. My workout routine has slowed down since then, and I've gained back some weight, but thankfully, it's more muscle than fat. In my late 20s, I learned that I have a personality type that makes me hard to get to know, which makes dating especially difficult. Around that time, I started to suspect I might be a high-functioning autistic. I do have many, though not all, traits. I've never been good at social stuff, which puts me at a huge disadvantage in the kind of socializing dating requires. In the last 5 years or so, I've started wondering if I have social anxiety disorder instead, or maybe in addition. Also, I've worked overnight shifts all this time, which adds yet another layer of difficulty to dating. I get the sense that I'd be the better-than-nothing guy, and I don't want to be someone's last resort. I'd like to be with a woman who actually wants to be with me, not just someone who feels like she has to be with someone. I also don't think it would be fair to burden a woman with all the quirks and foibles I've picked up over the years. And honestly, the social stigma of being over 40 and never even having had a date feels like an obstacle in itself. Story 5. My brother is 39 and a virgin. Honestly, I think the reason is because he's disgusting. He never cleans and basically leaves trash everywhere. He's morbidly obese and a recluse. He rarely leaves the house unless he absolutely has to. He'll let things in his home fall into absolute fucking ruin. Don't even try to imagine his bathroom when he lived alone. However, let's humanize him and try to understand. He has a legitimate eating disorder, was abused by his father, and has high-functioning autism. He's been depressed his entire life. He has incredible ideals. His general lack of cleanliness never interferes with his deep desire to make sure no one in his life ever goes hungry. He practically throws money at family members with kids because he gets emotionally invested in their futures. He's very smart. He graduated high school at 15 with honors. He can talk endlessly about any obscure science or philosophy topic. He has a lopsided ego. He seems confident and secure depending on the subject, but when it comes to his eating problems and his body, he hates himself. He thinks he's disgusting and never wants anyone to see him naked because he's deathly afraid of what they'll think. He's also terrified of himself, of what he might do in certain scenarios. For example, he got drunk for the first time at 35 because he was absolutely convinced there was some hidden, horrible violence inside him that would come out. But when he actually did get drunk, nothing bad happened. It was fine. He gets socially exhausted. Just going to the grocery store twice a week can leave him feeling like he can't be around people for several days. It's been an exceedingly slow process to get him out there and trying new things. I even dropped acid with him just last year, and we loved it. He's growing as a person, just at a different starting line and pace than most people. Story 6. I'm 37, not quite 40, but the thread is kind of dead and people are answering at younger ages, so here goes. I was born with a disability that mostly affects my legs. I can walk, sort of run, and even taught myself how to ride a regular, off-the-shelf, non-adapted bicycle. A lot of my situation comes down to bad luck. My parents split up, I changed schools, started getting bullied, home life was chaotic, and school sucked. I developed depression and low self-esteem at a young age without even realizing those things were abnormal. I drifted through life for about a decade before I even understood what depression was and that I might have it. By then, I was a senior in high school and had missed a lot of opportunities to date. I went to college because my state basically paid for it if you graduated high school with a pulse and AB average. The depression was still there. I tried to get help, but I didn't really understand counseling. Went to several counselors, most weren't helpful. I tried dating a friend once, but there was no spark. And she was also a terrible kisser. I rushed a co-ed fraternity and met some cool people, still friends with a few of them. I got really good at reading others when I was observing interactions, but I'm still bad at recognizing when someone is flirting with me. I became close friends with one of the brothers. Completely missed the signs that she was into me. We've stayed in touch for the past 16 years, and last spring she said something silly but flirty to me over Messenger. I wasn't sure what to make of it, so I asked another friend. She said, "Yeah, she's flirting with you." I couldn't wrap my head around it, so I asked directly, and yep, she was flirting with me. It blew both our minds. She had wanted me to notice for years, and I had honestly never had a clue. She got married 6 to 7 years ago, but they've had issues since they were dating. They recently filed for divorce. She's moving in with her parents, who live about 25 miles away. I don't know how long it'll take for us to feel comfortable enough to be intimate, but I don't think I'll still be a virgin by the time I'm 40. Hoping to kiss her by September. Edit. Her ex-husband is a 6 feet 7 inches cop who's emotionally abusive, possibly bipolar, and they still live in the same house. For now, she can say we're just friends. But once we kiss, that cover's gone. He already suspects something. Heck, he even suggested we date last summer. So yeah, things are weird. I'd rather wait until she and her child are safely out of that house before making a move. If I do somehow make it to 40 as a virgin, it won't be because I don't have a partner. And at the rate things are going, I won't be the only one with blue bits if we have to wait another 19 months. She wants to take me to St. Augustine for my birthday next spring. I asked her a month after my birthday this year. That's only 7 months away. Lots of barriers to break down and skin to explore if it happens by then. But as long as we're on that path and further along the road, we'll both be happy. I'm going to marry her in a couple of years, but we want to enjoy each other a bit first and not rush into it. Story 7. It's a combination of events. I was a bit of an unusual kid, likely on the autism spectrum, something I learned much later through therapy and testing. Having ginger hair was just an added bonus for other kids to constantly pick on me. And by constantly, I mean constantly, for years. Even when I changed classes or schools, it never stopped. It felt like I had a sign on my head, "Please bully me." I couldn't rely on my parents for support. My dad was a first-class selfish asshole, and my mom struggled with depression, so I had no choice but to survive both school and home life until I was 19. I never had a girlfriend in school. Some girls were nice to me, but I always assumed it was out of pity, which to me felt even worse than being bullied. That period of my life basically shaped me into an introvert, filled with anxiety. I got a job, moved out on my own, made a few friends through work, and kept going for years, pretending I was okay. I stayed a shy loner throughout my working life. I met plenty of women through my job, but nothing ever happened. I've built a massive emotional wall over the years, and I guess that, combined with being a stereotypical nice guy, didn't help. Some female coworkers genuinely liked me. I even worked up the courage to ask a few out. That's how I learned the meaning of the word friendzone. The older I got, the lonelier I became. Work got harder, especially because I let people walk all over me. I just wanted to be liked. My depression worsened until I burned out completely and ended up staying home for years. I've done 4 years of different types of therapy. Sometimes I felt like I was making progress, finding pieces of myself again. But every time, real life would crush me back to square one. I gradually saw less of my friends. They got girlfriends, got married, started families. Part of me doesn't really mind, but yeah, it hurts seeing other people so happy. Don't get me wrong, I want people to be happy. I just wish a little bit of that happiness would spill over to me. A few years ago, something snapped during group therapy. I stopped going and have basically retreated into my self-made castle ever since. Recently, I've been required to at least see a therapist from time to time, which I do. I have a dog and a few family members I see occasionally, but otherwise, my life feels pretty empty. I've sort of accepted that I'll never find someone. Nearing 40, unemployed, no friends, driving a car that's falling apart. I'm hardly prime dating material. Oh well, I guess relationships just aren't meant for everyone. Story 8. I made it to 33, almost 34, before I got married. I went on numerous dates and even had a girlfriend for several years, but our beliefs didn't permit sex before marriage. So I never had it, though we got fairly close a couple of times. I'm not trollish, and my personality isn't critically flawed. I bought into the nice guy mindset for a while, and that long-term relationship was with someone who had borderline personality disorder and was very abusive. Needless to say, she broke me of the nice guy nonsense and of trying to be anyone other than myself, which brought an authenticity that actually helped me start finding quality women to date. All that said, I'm thankful I waited for sex instead of jumping at the first opportunity or heading to a red light district. And so did my wife. She was 35 when we got married, also a virgin. She had never had a boyfriend, had never even been kissed. She spent several years overseas as a missionary teacher while I was in the army. I went on a couple of dates during my service, but never had a real relationship and no sex. When she returned home, she went on a few dates, but most of the guys were just creeps looking for a hookup or an ego boost. Eventually, we met on an online dating site. Things started slowly in April 2014, and we were engaged by Christmas. By that point, we both knew what we were looking for in a partner and didn't feel the need to spend a year or more dating and doing a long engagement. And for those who think we were crazy for not having sex before marriage or for not trying out others, it was worth it. So worth it. What we share, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, is something truly special, something deeply intimate that's just between the two of us. I hated waiting, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Edit because people got offended. When I said creeps looking for a lay, I meant guys who, 1, she personally found creepy, and 2, knowingly ignored her clearly stated preferences. Her dating profile explicitly said she wasn't looking for casual sex, that she wanted marriage, and that premarital sex was off the table. These guys misrepresented themselves to try and get what they wanted anyway. It does not mean everyone who wants to have sex outside of marriage is a creep. Story 9. I know a woman who's almost in her 50s and works as a supermarket checkout clerk. Over the years, all of us came and went while studying or moving on with our lives, but she's the one who stayed. Her life consists of working and going home. That's it. She doesn't have friends, just a few acquaintances she chats with during work hours. She's a kind person, but extremely pessimistic. She rarely smiles or laughs, and doesn't contribute much to conversations. She doesn't take care of her appearance, hasn't had a haircut in a long time, her teeth are stained, her skin and posture are poor. She wears dark-tinted glasses and rarely makes eye contact. She's completely disconnected from social media, no phone, no computer, so life moves on around her while she stays in this isolated bubble. Her family lives out on a farm, and despite not living with them anymore, her parents are still very controlling. I've often wondered if something terrible happened to her when she was younger, some kind of abuse, maybe, that caused her to build this protective, antisocial shell. She's genuinely a nice person. Occasionally, when I'm in that part of town, I'll stop by the supermarket and go through her checkout line. Nothing ever changes with her, but she usually seems happy to hear about what's new in my life. She really wants a promotion. Hasn't had one in over 20 years, but she doesn't seem to realize that her outward demeanor is holding her back. Management has even told her what she needs to change in order to move up, but she believes the system is just unfair to her. So yeah, I think she's still a virgin, unless something awful happened to her in her younger years. Story 10. 30-something female, still holding on to my V-card. I'm not religious. I'm not socially awkward or a recluse. I'm confident, and even without makeup, I don't resemble a swamp monster. I went to a Catholic all-girls school, but I'm not Catholic now. I was never taught that sex was wrong or told to wait until marriage. That said, there was a lot of slut-shaming at my school, especially on Monday mornings if you so much as walked down the street with a guy at a party. Once, I danced with a bunch of different guys. They asked, I was polite, at one of the local boys' school's annual dances. A few days later, I found out people were calling me the town bike. Good times. So after that, I went out of my way to avoid all that jealous teen girl drama. From high school through college, I stayed busy with sports, work, and other things, so not having a serious boyfriend made life simpler. I did date. I made out with guys. I just never kept anyone around for long. And I'm not the kind of girl who does one-night stands or hops into bed just because a guy bought me a slice of pizza and a beer. There's a bunch of other stuff I could write about my teen years and early 20s, but I'm not emotionally damaged by it, so I'll skip all that. After college, I threw myself into my career. I traveled a lot and worked hard to break into my industry. During that time, there was always a fear in the back of my mind of getting pregnant or getting stuck somewhere because of a guy. I never wanted to get married until I was old, like in my 30s. To me, marriage always felt like the end of your life, and there was so much I wanted to do first. Anyway, I still dated, went to bars, flirted, all the usual stuff. I just didn't hook up. Still don't. But somewhere along the way, I realized I had no sexual experience. And even if I did meet a guy I wanted to date more than a few times, the idea of having to tell him that terrifies me, because that would make me really vulnerable. I'd lose the perfect image I've kept up. He could end up being a jerk and telling everyone. Or we could sleep together, I could be awful at it, and he'd ghost me. Having to explain that you've only had sex once and probably suck at it feels worse than admitting you're still carrying that V-card. So that's where I am now. On the outside, I'm a fairly successful, confident smartass, and without sounding full of myself, I'm above average in the looks department. But having to confess all this to a guy who's probably seen and done everything? That's a gamble I'm just not ready to take. Story 11. First, let me save you the trouble. Username checks out. In my younger days, I struggled with self-esteem issues and periods of unemployment. If you've ever been a man and unemployed, you know the first question everyone asks is, what do you do for a living? That made dating extremely awkward for me. I couldn't bring myself to ask anyone out when I didn't have an answer. Am I religious? Yes, I'm Catholic. I definitely hoped to find a Catholic woman, though I did ask out women who weren't. Did I want to marry a virgin? Sure, but I wasn't naive. By my 20s, I'd already accepted that might not be possible. Even after I found steady work, I kept following this unhelpful pattern, trying to become friends first, then asking a woman out. A woman actually did that to me once, and I had an aha moment where I realized how poorly that strategy works. I'd rate myself a 5, though my self-esteem issues probably make me rate myself lower. I've asked out women who were 9s or 10s, but I've also asked out 5s. I'm just as drawn to beauty as the next guy, but if you've got a nice smile and seem like a fairly smart person, I'm probably going to be interested. In the early 2000s, I developed a full-blown anxiety disorder, which I didn't get help for until 2005. I tried to engage with women during the early stages of recovery, but I came off as awkward, or worse, creepy. When I started doing a little better, I went out with a couple of women I met online. One was a one-time date. We didn't click in person the way we had online. The other was a long-distance relationship, and I suspect she was seeing someone else because not long after we broke up, she got married. Since then, I haven't done much. The older I get, the harder it is to find single women even remotely close to my age. I often find myself attracted to women in their 20s, but I know that's probably just a hormonal thing. I realize how ridiculous it would be to date someone half my age. I remember being 25. If a woman in her 50s had asked me out, I would have thought it was creepy. I don't want to be that guy. In recent years, I've more or less given up on finding someone. I'm trying to find peace with myself as a single man. Acceptance seems like a healthier path than living in a constant state of frustration. Story 12. I'm in my early 30s and a virgin. I don't let it define me, but I'm still using a throwaway because others will let it define you. I'm not sure if my story is all that interesting, but I'll share it anyway. People often assume there's something deeply unattractive about someone still being a virgin at my age. I hate that assumption. I've always had a lot of success with women, but I just never fell in love with any of them. Subconsciously, I used to keep my options open by not truly engaging with the women who were interested in me. I'd flirt, they'd fall for me, and I'd keep them at arm's length. Some stuck around for years, but eventually, everyone gives up. As I got older, being a virgin started to weigh on me. I do want a relationship sometimes. So I started doing some self-reflection to figure out what was holding me back. I realized I'd been dishonest, with myself and with others. I'd been stringing women along, hoping that maybe I'd start to feel something different one day. I needed to start being more honest about my feelings, both to them and to myself. I only came to that conclusion after a long period of thinking there was something wrong with me. During that time, I tried to force myself to connect with women who were interested in me. But through those attempts, I realized the truth. Deep down, I just wasn't all that interested. I've fallen in love twice, and those were the moments I came closest to being intimate. I've come to accept that I need to actually fall in love in order to pursue someone romantically, and that doesn't happen easily for me. But that doesn't make me weird or abnormal. It's just who I am. Story 13. 37 male. It's been a mix of anxiety, depression, low confidence, and just plain not taking chances, freezing in the moment, not realizing I actually had a shot, that sort of thing. At 37, meeting people is a lot harder. With work taking up most of my time and energy, I often feel drained. The idea of going to dating events has overwhelmed me on several occasions. I've only been to one speed dating event, which actually wasn't too bad on the night, but I usually talk myself out of things because I don't feel like I have much of a chance of meeting someone. The only women who've shown interest have generally been co-workers I've known for a while, but my current job doesn't offer much of that. Looking back, I can now see that a few women were probably interested in me, but I completely missed the signals at the time. Most of the time, they were the ones to make the first move, since I didn't have the confidence to do it myself. And usually, it was on their last day at work or something, so I didn't see them again. I felt too ashamed to follow up afterward. Honestly, I don't think I'm a bad catch. Sure, I've got my issues, lazy at times, low confidence, but I've got a good, well-paying job, I'm a decent height, I get along with people, and I have no aggressive tendencies. But I've become more awkward around women as I've gotten older, mostly because I'm ashamed of still being a virgin. So now it feels like even more of an uphill battle. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share a similar story or anything you'd like to say in the comments. See you next time.